It's 4 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. And give you regrets from Elizabeth, Trustee Elizabeth Croft, who is undergoing dental surgery today, and we wish her well. So we respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. And we'll look at the adoption agenda. Moved by Trustee Schmidt, seconded by Trustee Groot. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to minutes of December 1st open board meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Hutchins, seconded by Trustee Dolan. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to recognition and delegations, and our first delegation is from Community Safety Advisory Commission, and I know Trustee Villiers and Lori Inianardo are here as part of the commission, and I'm not sure who's starting, but please.
I'm starting
forward.
Where I'm at.
Great.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and hello to all of you and Happy New Year. I see some familiar faces. Last time I was in the boardroom was 1996 as the chair of the first pack of Francis Kelsey. So this is bringing back memories and maybe some of my political history where it all started, I'm not sure. I'm the area director for Area D, Cowichan Bay, and I also have been in the past the chair for the Cowichan Safety Advisory Commission. And we're here today to let you know what we do, who we are, and what's been happening. And I know that Candace has been a member for a lot of years too, so she'd be familiar with some of it. So I'm going to follow my notes because I tend to go off, and I realize we only have a 10-minute presentation as well. So the CBRD Community Safety Advisory was formed in 2003 as a committee of the board and has been working since its inception as the Women's Safety Advisory in 1996. And this was to foster safe communities. In December 2012, the CBRD established the Community Safety Advisory Commission to complement the board's identified strategic action of continuing to support Community Safety Advisory Committee CBRD Bylaw 3622 established the CSAC to provide advice on safety issues in the regional, sub-regional, and interagency importance. So the CSAC is charged with the following responsibilities: to advise the board on community safety issues of the regional, sub-regional, and interagency importance. And it's to serve as a forum for multi-sectoral discussions where local government and community groups can work together. The Commission has a leading role in providing advice and support to safer communities initiatives across the region. To be a conduit for recommendations arising from its members and from community initiatives, and for issues referred by the board, elected officials, and staff requests. To be a resource for planning staff as various local governments and area planning commissions. Over the years, CSAC has worked on a range of issues and initiatives, including, but not limited to, women's safety audits, that's where I was introduced to this, planning and design guidelines, community action plan, and the development of regional safety lens, and the Safe Needle strategy, which our board chair at the time is familiar with too, Rob. So, and I'd like to introduce now Christy Villiers, and she is the Safer Futures Coordinator, and this is something we like to embed and put into our planning at CBRD, and it's to make sure that we look at all of our planning with a youth lens. So, Christy.
Thank you. So, as Lori mentioned, my name is Christy. Thanks for having us here. I actually work for Safer Futures, Cowichan Women Against Violence Society, and we are a function of the CSAC, so we kind of do their bidding. We do all the slave work for them. And so I'm just actually going to talk about CSAC's priorities, because every year CSAC will actually determine what their priorities are for that year. And they do that based on community needs. And for the last few years, since 2011, in response to the death of a young Cowichan Valley woman, we had youth safety as a focus. And so in 2012, we formed Safe Youth Cowichan, which I hope some of you guys have heard about. There's a community report on the table about this group. They're an amazing, diverse group of youth from all over parts of the valley. And so from 2012 to 2014, they actually went all over the valley to consult with over 500 youth, basically asking them you know, what does safety mean to you? What makes you feel safe? We were in high schools and different community groups. And so the findings of this quite lengthy report, there's only one on there, but I'm happy to email everybody if you guys are interested, is the basis for their work. And actually in 2014, they won an award from the Ministry of Justice for youth leadership on crime prevention, so that's pretty cool. So some of their achievements, I'm going to show you a video which kind of will sum it up, but some of their achievements briefly. They work with local government, so they've managed to get representation on committees and commissions, including the CSAC, which last year we changed the bylaw, so now we actually have youth representation on the CSAC. They were stakeholders in the University Village Local Area Plan, so that was very interesting for them. And they helped redesign the City of Duncan Junior Youth Council, which now you would know, Joe. Yeah. They have a meaningful budget. They actually have a budget, and they actually, you know, have a voice in that sense. So that's been really interesting. They worked with Cowichan Tribes and Malahat Nation over the last summer to develop and design prevention programs looking at street harassment and street violence, and delivered these programs to at-risk youth. So that was quite an innovative, and they had great community events afterwards with success as well. And then the video that we're going to show you is a youth lens that they developed in collaboration with the Duncan Junior Youth Council. And this is basically a tool that governments can use that when they're making decisions that they can include youth interests in them, kind of like a safety lens or an environmental lens. And so this is what they developed, and actually CVRD has adopted it. We're hoping that other local governments will adopt it. They're doing a big presentation to the ABICC this year as well. So I'm just going to play the video, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them as well. Do I just press play here?
Hopefully.
Some of you guys will know that.
For a moment.
The stars of the video.
Because it's not really about more than observing it. I think any writer will tell you that the observation is all you really need. It's all in the observation. So keep waiting, waiting on the world to change. Keep on waiting, waiting on the world to change. It goes like this. Me and all my friends, we're all misunderstood. They say we stand for nothing and there's no way we ever would. Now we see everything that's going wrong with the world and those who lead it. We just feel like we don't have the means to rise above and beat it. So we keep waiting.
Not all kids ever do these days is just text each other.
We keep waiting, waiting on the world to change. It's hard to beat the system.
Wow, there's some young guy passed out drunk at City Hall here.
Waiting on the world to change. Now if we had the power to bring our neighbors home from war, they would have never missed a Christmas.
I had to ride my board, the bus went right by me again.
When you trust your television,
come on guys, it's time to come
what
in.
you get is what you got. Cause when they own the information on, they can bend it all they want. That's why we're waiting. We're waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting. We're waiting on the world to change. It's not that we don't care, but we just know that the fight ain't fair. So we keep on waiting. We're waiting on the world to change.
Waking up to ash and dust, I wipe my brow and I sweat my rust.
Please rise. Though we are young, we are empowered. May we take this responsibility seriously and use our voices to better the community as a whole. Thank you. Junior Councillor Kononowitz, would you update us on your progress with the food forest strategy?
Since our last meeting, I've met with the town of Lake Cowichan about their food forest strategy and local environment committees. Previously, before this meeting, I was checking email on my phone and everything looks like it's going ahead. I'm very excited.
Junior Councillor Saywell, would you update us on what's going on with the compost plan?
The city is working with us to put compost bins starting with 3 areas for the summer: City Square, Centennial Park, and Charles Hoy Park. We definitely need signs to go with all the bins.
As for the transit recommendation, I'll speak to that. I'm arranging and we're going to do a presentation to the Regional Transit Board. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda.
Actually, there's something I'd like to say.
Please do.
I just had an interesting experience outside while I was sitting at the park bench, just relaxing and enjoying the day. I saw a group of young people sitting on the steps, and I was interested in just observing them, and fellow just laying down asleep on behind them. A couple of women walked by and gave them really kind of negative looks and made a comment about youth these days always being on their cell phones. And then an adult man walked by the youth, and as he was going by, he had a empty coffee cup in his hand, and he dropped it beside the garbage can, but he missed it, and kept walking. One of the youth got up and followed him and picked up his coffee cup and put it in the garbage. And then went back and sat down. Well, a few minutes later, all of the youth got up and walked into City Hall. And I thought, gee, I was sort of curious what was going on. And so I followed them in. These same youth were in council, and they went into the boardroom, and they were sitting in council. And this is whom I'm speaking to now.
Junior Councillor White, would you update us on your progress with the active transportation plan?
We are planning to present our ideas and ask for a seat on the Regional Sustainability Committee. This is going to be a great opportunity for youth voices to be heard.
Junior Councillor George, would you update us on what you've been doing with the youth safety strategy?
We're doing a video about the importance of youth voices.
I think that we need to be a little more aware of making these kinds of assumptions about the youth that we see and that we're also in contact with throughout our days and in our homes and everywhere in the community.
And for the river update, we're meeting with the Watershed Board and working with Cowichan Tribe's Youth Council.
We are really kind of gracious of adults to start to recognize this and acknowledge the youth and what the youth have to say and what it's like to be a youth. I think it's really critical that we invite them to join in and to be a part of decision making. Thank you.
If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every woman, calling every man. We're the generation, we can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday, and we're already late.
That brings us to our next item, the youth lens. In our work, we've learned that youth often feel underrepresented or misunderstood. They want to be included and consulted about developments in the community that impact their lives. So we've gathered opinions and created the Youth Lens. It's a simple checklist which can serve as a tool for local government and organizations. It'll help them understand how their decisions will affect youth, and it empowers youth to have a voice in the community. Finally ready to go out. So let's take a look.
I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. Tomorrow's
just a youth. I'm also a rock climber, a girl who teaches Kung Fu with a black belt degree, and a girl who rides horses. There's more to me than meets the eye. I am not just a youth. I am a dancer, a leader, and a writer.
I'm not just a youth, I am smart and I'm a leader.
I'm not just a youth. I'm a singer, a dancer, and also a really good artist. There's more to me than you can see. There's more to me than you can see.
I've seen that video so many times and I still get teary-eyed every time I watch it. But yeah, so that's the video that they developed in conjunction with the Youth Lens. And from a CSAC perspective, we're working on a youth regional strategy. And so this is just kind of, we're doing little pieces of pie, basically, the larger. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for us or anything like that, but that concludes our presentation.
Just a comment for those of you that haven't seen these kids, they're totally amazing. As I sat on Duncan City Council, I was really proud because if you saw me get excited, it's because my granddaughter's involved. And it's totally amazing to see these kids clean up the river. There was an individual who was even dressed up as Wonder Woman or something. Water Woman. And talking to the kids on the street was amazing. They went to schools, they were just about everywhere. I've seen this video before, but I can never tire of it because if anything, I wish we could get this out to more places because people need to understand that these kids today are a lot more understanding than we give them credit for. And I too have been guilty at some points of making the assumption when I see somebody just sitting there, I think my mind says one thing, but in reality it's totally different. So I want to say thank you again.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from the trustees? Well, Lori and Christy, thank you so much for coming and sharing what you do. Thank you. And I'm sorry that our trustee representative on CSAC is not here. She speaks very glowingly of the work that you're doing. Trustee Croft is away on dental surgery apparently, so she will be very sorry to miss this evening. Okay, moving to item 4B, recognition. And it is my honor, on behalf of the board, to recognize a teacher in our district who has excelled, not only as a teacher, department head, workshop leader, but also as an award winner in geographic education, Janet Ruet. Janet is a valued geography and history teacher and department head at Chemaina Secondary School. Students and staff, and I heard this evening parents as well, sing her praises as she inspires what we're calling transformational education of geographic literacy. Janet extends her love of geography by offering workshops at provincial social studies conventions, district implementation forums, and Pro-D conferences. She's a contributing writer for Pearson Publishing Social Studies textbook series for grades 8 to 11. She's a lead facilitator of the grade 11 Social Studies Provincial Exam Monitoring and was a regular marker of the grade 12 provincial exams in History 12 and Geography 12. Janet was selected from 2,700 applicants as one of 35 highly respected educators from the US and Canada. She was chosen as one of the 2015 Lindblad Expeditions and National Geographic Gros Lenore Teacher Fellows. Following her trip as part of this to the Galapagos Islands, she was doubly honored to be recognized for her dynamic teaching approach with the 2015 Innovation in Geography Teaching Award, Canada's highest Geography K-12 Teaching Award presented by the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. We are honored to have Janet as a teacher in our school district, and we wish to recognize her teaching excellence on behalf of the board. We're very proud of you, Janet. Please come forward. Just gonna take a selfie. Okay. And we have to smile. Usually that way. Okay. Are we on? Perfect. Thank you. All right, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank in particular Rod and Cheryl for their support on this adventure that I've been on for the last year. And as trustees and former teachers, you know that it's not 1 year, it's a career. And there are hundreds in our district, there are hundreds, I'm not good with speaking in front of crowds. Think of you as kids, kids at heart. But to me, this is recognition of all the teachers in our district who work hard and don't get recognized. And so, thank you for this, but please, we've got hundreds in our district and thousands in our province. They're fabulous teachers. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Shucks, back to the agenda. Report of closed meeting. Mr. Zegras, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
At the closed meeting earlier today, a human resource issue and two property issues were discussed and a joint use agreement.
Thank you. Moving to item 6, old business A, the action list. And I see number 1 says done. Could you tell us a little bit about that, Mr. Allen, our superintendent of schools, who is trying to find his place on the agenda?
To move away from electronic to the action list.
It's regarding the School District 79 Day of Change.
Right, so the day of change is down to one of 2 dates. They have asked us for support with busing. This is our prime area of support. We run the math thanks to Monroe. And so we are agreeing that we will support somewhere around $700 to run the busing to bring kids into the Couch Theater. Great event, great day, lots of discussion about what that's going to look like still to come, but a lot of interest amongst the kids. Yeah.
Okay, and that will happen sometime in the spring?
April
15th or the 22nd.
Oh,
15th or 22nd. We're still not locked on a date yet.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee Hutchins?
Through you to the superintendent, where is the rest of the funding coming from? Those initiatives are not cheap to put on.
Mr. Superintendent, do you know?
Some of the funding support for organization has come through a provincial grant that's come from us through to the Intercultural Society to help with these kinds of planning. So that's where some of the staff time or adult time support is coming from. The rest is coming through donation in kind. Working with a local radio station to bring a band in at their expense, and just a huge amount of community support for this.
Thank you. Anything further on that item? Moving down the list, I see there's another done one here on Board Book Club. 10 book titles, is that coming to be BEBC then?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Come through Trustee Hutchins, through to BEBC. And before Christmas, I also sent out a cheat sheet reading list of some videos, some articles, all linked in through our own cloud, sort of around educational topics, education transformation, some of the pieces that have been sort of pivotal in the provincial thinking as we've been moving down this road.
Listen, thank you for that. They are excellent. I haven't finished the list, but the ones I've seen.
I haven't either, but I did get through quite a bit.
But the ones I've seen have been really entertaining as well as very informative, so thank you for that. Anything else on the action list from anyone? Okay, moving back to the agenda then, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Al.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving to board information update. Not a lot has transpired in one way since we last met in December, given the December break and schools being really focused on winter concerts and gatherings and so on. However, while there was lots of fun and frivolity going on in our schools, I asked the schools to submit a bit of a summary of and it's really apropos after the last, the first delegation, about the kinds of things that our kids were doing during the month of December and really November, and in some cases starting in October. So this is an ad that went in the paper showing some our DSAC students in the backpack project. This was sort of the culminating picture as all the backpacks were stuffed. You'll see some other pictures as we scroll through about our DSAC students with the fundraising that they did, the gathering of things, the piles and piles of clothing and toiletries and all kinds of stuff that filled the backpacks that they've gathered over the sort of mostly December. But that wasn't really it. And so in our schools, every one of our schools was engaged in fundraising over the course of November and December. I have a long sheet here, but I don't want to get into each individual school. But sort of very quietly and without any fanfare, well over 200 boxes of food were collected by students across our community. Well over $1,000 of cash was donated to food banks, hampers, gifts, etc. 125 pairs of socks, for example, were donated to the Clement Center. 50 blankets donated to the Warmland Shelter were fundraised for, purchased and donated to the Warmland Shelter. We can't count the number of families and vulnerable children who were supported through this, gifts purchased and so on. So it speaks to, again, like the video, the kinds of things that our kids are engaged in that you don't sort of normally hear about and gather up in one place. Just phenomenal efforts. And it wasn't just students, it was also staffs of many of the schools, school board office staff, transportation staff, etc. Did all kinds of quiet fundraising, donations, filling a school bus with things and driving it to fill the trailer, etc. So I thought you might want to know that well, sort of December is a month of, we think of as Christmas concerts, and it is that, or oops, did I say that word?
Yes.
Winter concerts. It's also a lot of other things are going on in our schools by our kids being great kids. So thanks to those kids, to staff, because of course when all that work's done by kids, it's also supported and led by staff. So huge community effort that I think speaks well to the work our schools do in the community. Well, we all dry our eyes. Just to give you a last piece here, update on Cow High. As the siding is progressing, as that final skinning is being put on, starting to look good, starting to get a little bit more of a finished look. And we know the weather's not always cooperative. There's been some cold days up there, but again, thanks to Monroe and his crew, because of course that's all being done in-house. So thanks to Monroe and his crew for keeping that work going, and the work inside Couch and Secondary continues as well as we move through those, renovating those classrooms. Shall I move on to 7.2, or if there's any questions about any of that, I'd be happy to.
I think they just probably wanted to say how proud we are of the kids and the staff, and including the maintenance operations side and all the pieces that just come together around the community, and that's very rewarding for us.
It's just too bad we have schools full of, you know, selfish kids that don't give back to the community. Haven't found those kids yet, but I hear they're around somewhere. I just haven't bumped into them. Update on Syrian refugees. We have our first young fellow in school. Syrian refugee is in school as of today at Koheman, and smiling ear to ear through most of the day as he's getting to know the school and we're getting to know him. So it's nice to have started finally with getting kids in school. According to the principal, his English is pretty good, and so he's actually working pretty fast on making friends, and of course everybody wants to be his friend, so that's great. We hear that another family that we've been sort of waiting for, that has 2 folks, will be here middle of the month. We anticipate and look forward to them arriving and getting those kids into school as quickly as possible. Our international folks have been great at sort of helping with some of the paperwork and getting that done really quickly so that there's no time out of school. Those kids come and get in, because getting into school is first priority. So that's pretty cool that we're actually moving down that road. Lots of talk about other families coming. So far, it's mostly been through private sponsorships, church groups, etc. And we know often those will be coming with little warning. So our schools are kind of ready. Our international folks are ready. Lorna and her team are ready as we start looking at the needs of some of those children. But again, it's hard to anticipate until they actually walk in the door and you can have a conversation with them and see what the needs are. But pretty exciting. Just further to that note, CBC is desperate enough they're going to talk to me tomorrow afternoon on an interview about, because the refugees have landed, and so they are really wanting to have a conversation about how that's playing out in the district, the kinds of things that we're doing as a district to support those students as they come. So that will be happening on the afternoon show tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you. Trustee Hutchins and then Trustee Thorne.
Thank you. Through you, the superintendent, so what is the ELL support that we have available for such a child?
Like I say, as we assess those children as they come in, see what their needs are, we would be addressing those as we would with any other child, providing that type of whatever the support is, like any child in the district. Like I say, as it turns out, with young Mohammed, his English is actually quite good. His spoken English is really quite good. Each child will be unique and different, and as you unpeel those layers of the trauma that they've gone through and the issues that they have lived through, again, each family and each child will be different. In my previous life as a principal in Houston, we had 6 Sudanese families come to Houston midwinter at 40 below. A lot of change, and every one of those children was completely different from each other one. And really, we thought we were prepared and had programs laid out for all of them, and like all children, you find out actually one program doesn't meet all the needs. You need a whole bunch of different things for different kids, depending on their experiences of the life they've come from, their time in school, etc. So that's also why we've been waiting sort of for them to come. Resources at the ready, but need to meet the kids before we.
Thank you, Trustee Thorne.
In working with the Intercultural Society, I know that Lady Smith will be next to receive the family, and we are looking at a family for Duncan as well. Mohammed and his family, they're trying to relocate in that area because they seem to like it. We have been talking with a lot of the Syrians from, or at least I have as my part with Naheem from Victoria and Amar from here in Duncan. So we are lining up on our own translators. We're looking at getting some doctors. There's a lot of doctors that want to volunteer to help. The superintendent is working with the schools to make sure that we can find some room to deal with them. And as he said, based on their English grade level, there's a lot to be done. It's all private funding for the first 12 months, 5 people per, I think it's $30,000. So I was actually going to call Randy over the holidays because I'm getting a lot of communication, but I can't read. I don't understand what I'm looking at. I thought Indians were crazy with their hieroglyphics, but it's beyond me, and I'm really grateful at the way Cowichan and the island has come together for these people.
Thank you. Moving on to board action.
7.3, board action. As you know, we have over the summer moved out of Duncan Primary, the old Duncan Primary building, moved across the street to Duncan Elementary. See, I am learning the names. And we now are in a position where we need to formally begin the closure process on the empty building, Duncan Primary, so that we can, after we close it, then we can get to disposition of that building. And so I have a motion before you that we're recommending that the Board of Education gives notice to the intent to close Duncan Primary facility and immediately commences the consultation process required under policy 2445.
Moved by trustee Schmidt, seconded by trustee Ford. Any discussion? Trustee Hutchins.
Is policy 2445 under revision by our stellar policy review group?
Over to superintendent.
It probably will be. Whether it will be in time for this, not sure.
I'm just wondering if it would be prudent if we advance this one.
The current policy isn't overwhelming, especially given the fact that there's no kids in the school. It's not a school full of children, and so we anticipate one public meeting.
Can I just inquire as follow-up, is it a lengthy process in the current policy?
There's some timelines, but there's not a lot of action that actually is going to have to happen within those timelines.
So we're not held to 8 months or whatever it may be.
There's a 90-day consultation process within the current policy, but many of the, for example, there's no parents in the school to consult with, there isn't a principal to consult with. A lot of the steps within the policy won't need to be taken. And I think we can probably combine our public meeting with our public budget meeting to do them at the same time on March 31st.
Thank you. Anything further on the motion? Trustee Hutchins?
So there's no reason to expedite it by waiving policy or amending policy at this time?
Mr. Allen?
Not really. We think we can easily comply with the timelines, especially by getting it dealt with tonight. Line it up for our March budget meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on the motion? Calling the question. All those in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Moving to Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Seglist.
Thank you.
Start with celebration.
Jason has been living the happy end.
He's down to one job.
You see a new face sitting over here. This is Karen Blow, who I'm pleased to introduce to the board and our members of the public as the new Assistant Secretary Treasurer. Karen has a lot of different experiences which are going to be really valuable to us. She has been an auditor of school districts. She worked with the Ministry of Finance, where she consolidated all of the school district's information into the government reporting entity. She comes to us from the school district on Squamish, so Sea to Sky, where she had a similar role. And she's also been a 2-term school trustee. So all of that knowledge has joined us in the role of Assistant Secretary.
You took her anyway.
And she's 92.
She's been here for 2 days and is currently in limbo as she awaits her house to be ready. So
And her computer.
And her computer, which we had on order, but is now arrived and is being set up. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Okay, moving to item 8.2 for board information, Mr. Sankos. First is the ministry funding announcement.
Yes. Late in the day, December 18th, just prior to the break, our funding announcement arrived. And at that time, I indicated that I'd bring back a little bit more thorough analysis on what it would look like and what it meant. So I suspect that it took so long to receive our funding announcement as there were 6,577 additional students that weren't anticipated in the province for estimates, and the province had to figure out how to fund those students. They did that by increasing the overall operating block by 6.7 million. So up on the screen there is a comparison of our funding from what we thought it would be last March when we got our initial announcement, which is column B, to column D, which is the revised funding estimate. And this isn't a spreadsheet that matches the ministry's format, it's just the way that I laid it out so you could compare the two different columns. So important to note is that if you look at column E and F, those are our changes. And under column E, we increased in enrollment by 136.375 FTE over our projection. So that's pretty consistent with what happened across the province, where overall we all estimated a little bit lower than what actually happened. That would have, if we were out of funding protection, have generated us close to $1 million for those students. So there's highlight number one.
Which is what it cost us.
We spent about $1 million.
What a great news guy.
Moving down to our supplement for unique student needs, we had some identification of additional students in level 2 special needs of 38 additional students. And the other highlight there is that our Aboriginal education numbers also increased. That would have generated us an additional $668,000 had we not been in funding protection. The final item that is of significance is our supplement for salary differential, and that is when your staff costs you more than the average teaching staff in the province, you get a little lift for that. We would have received $207,000. So the big number here, what I want to really highlight, is that our funding protection was estimated to be close to $3 million in the spring. It's now $1.1 million. So we are moving very rapidly out, even a little bit quicker than we had anticipated. So next year's budget, we should likely be out, I suspect. When we run those comparisons, we actually, for some reason, I haven't figured out the ministry's formula precisely, but we went up by $48,000 when we look at our September to September count. So that was a good news as well. Unknown to us, February counts. So we still have some risk factors in what's going to come in for the February, particularly that's the count where any increases in special needs students are recognized, as well as we have counts for the DL program, distributed learning, dual credit, and adult programs. In May, it will be the distributed learning, adult, and dual credit programs. So those are still our unknowns, but a significant part of our revenue is now in and known, and that was, I think, relatively good news that it was a little bit higher than we expected, even if it's slightly higher. So,
And it's not lower.
it's not lower. It's the big one. But major point here is that we're moving rather rapidly out of funding protection with the enrollment growth that we have.
Greater pain, shorter term.
Yeah.
Yep. Stop there for a second, Trustee Hutchins.
So excuse my ignorance, but we didn't actually receive additional funds,
Additional 48,000.
but not the million. Additional funds.
No, we did not.
So of the 6.7 million, they increased the amount by. That was all the districts that weren't in funding protection, obviously.
That's correct.
So what was the actual number then that would have, like if ours was $1 million, it must have been higher than the 6.7 million if you.
Yeah, I think that in their letter, they talk about redistribution of 10.3 million from enrollment decline supplements, and redistribution of, it's on the first part of the agenda package that we included here. They didn't talk about what the portion that was in funding protection that was redistributed was, but there is a schedule attached to the funding announcement that I can provide you if it's of interest to see how everybody started out and how everybody ended up on funding protection. Because I'm certainly assuming that you know, there were close to 30 plus districts in funding protection at the start of the year. I haven't looked at how many came out. I imagine a lot came out.
I think they also put in, if I'm reading this right, the holdback, so they allocated the holdback, so money that would normally come out, 55 million, come out in the spring and be redistributed across the province, isn't now at all. That 55 million also went in to fund this extra 60 or 6,000 kids.
Mr. Sandwood?
So a challenge that provides, having used all the holdback, which is often held for the February and May counts for the growth in those two, is what will happen if we go up in February and May. Will there be funding available for those counts provincially? The trend may continue with growth in those as well.
Is there anything further on that?
Nope, that's, I wanted to print that one first. I'm going to lead into the financial projection update. So we built that additional $48,000 into our amended budget. And as you look at our amended budget here, you haven't adopted this budget yet. There will be a call for an amended budget likely at the end of February, but as of today, we hadn't received that yet from the ministry. What I want to point out here is actually the very, very bottom line. Notice these numbers are quite small. Where I'm projecting right now a surplus in the range of $143,000 based on what we know today. An area that's really difficult to do a projection on when you're using December numbers are employee benefits, so I've just left those at 0. Those will be fine-tuned as we finally get some payrolls in January, but many of our staff have maximized their CPP or EI contributions for the year, so difficult to extrapolate those forward when there isn't anything in the expenditure side, as well as the pension rate changes for teachers as they move to a higher, as their income gets higher and throughout the year. So those will come a little bit later, but just so you're aware that it's still very, very tight in as far as projection for the balance of this year.
Thank you. Trustee Hedges?
And this time last year, were we not operating over a $1.2 million surplus?
We were further, I think we were further ahead. I don't know that it was quite that high. We ended up close to that at the end of the year as our projections went on. We get better at projecting as we move closer to the year and the unknowns are less and less. One thing that we need to note is that the superintendent just brought up the $55 million of the holdback, which often comes in a little bit later in the year and isn't included in the projection, isn't likely going to happen. So at the end of the year we have a surplus that's higher than we projected. Often that's the ministry releasing the balance of the funding that they held back for enrollment growth, and that money's now being utilized. So I think we're going to be pretty tight this year.
Trustee Hedges?
The previous treasurer, I think last year, or this spring, used the term we operate quite close to the wire.
Yeah.
This is, I'm not sure how you describe this.
We are extremely close to the wire, and really that is that enrollment growth. When you saw the funding protection go down by 1.8 million, there were expenditures required to meet those student needs. So 136 new students meant 10 teachers. All those additional students that were identified in level 2 as special needs that required education assistance. So where we had a surplus that was quite generous when we started the year, it was very quickly utilized, and it was very fortunate that we had that surplus, or we would be looking at other reductions.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything further on the projection? Okay.
We'll continue to bring them as we move through the year.
Very helpful. Moving back to the board action, Mr. Sanford.
Thank you. We received an announcement that we would be receiving funding for 4 passenger buses, and not seat 4 people. There's 4 different buses here for you.
Very small bus.
There are 3 80 passenger buses and 1 46 passenger bus, and I want to note that of 2 of the 80 passenger buses, we are consciously decreasing their capacity to put in handicap lifts, which we think will assist us with some routing issues in one case, and in another it provides a bus that can now be used for field trips for inclusive of students that may not have been able to participate if they couldn't get access to the transportation before. So we've taken a bit of a step beyond the bylaw amount and found some internal funding to support those modifications. So Before you is the capital project bylaw 127049, which is for the replacement of 4 buses, and I ask you to consider first reading.
So moved by trustee Schmidt, seconded by trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Motion carries.
For second reading, the same bylaw, capital project bylaw 127049, the replacement of 4 passenger buses.
Moved by trustee DeGroot, seconded by trustee Dolman. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to third reading.
As there's funding implications and these buses are ordered, we'd like to have the capital project bylaw submitted as quickly as we can. So I'm asking the board to consider 3 readings of the capital project bylaw 127049 at this meeting.
So moved by trustee Schmidt, seconded by trustee Thorne. All those in favor? Motion carries. And final reading.
Thank you. And for third and final reading of capital project bylaw 127049, replacement of 4 passenger buses, and I'm going to just add the amount to this for the final reading, in the amount of $617,122.
Thank you. Moved by trustee Dolman, seconded by trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to item 9, committees.
Madam Chair.
Sorry, trustee.
Just a procedural matter, why are we having to read each bylaw individually? First reading, second reading, third reading? Why can't we do first, second, and third? Is that our policy? Or
It's
is
in
that
our policy as well.
another thing to change?
On the list.
Thank you.
It's a bylaw.
Moving on, committees and outside organizations. DPAC meeting, trustee Dolman.
I would like to move that we receive the minutes for the November 19th DPAC meeting. And once again, a wonderful group of parents who support us.
Before you go on, motion first, okay? Moved by trustee Dolman, seconded by trustee Hutchins. Okay.
A wonderful group of parents. They support us, and our goals are the same as theirs. And so, they are looking forward to having the parent representation here tonight. They're looking forward to this with Young coming into town in February. And all the other great things. Report cards are still a little bit of a concern, but that's just an ongoing thing that we're following.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Trustee Hutchins?
Yeah, our district principal, Glenn Posey, appears to have given a demonstration of the power cloud. I'm wondering if we could possibly have a demonstration sometime in the future. It's a mystery to me. So I saw it in action at Cow High, and I was like, wow.
Okay, can I refer that to the superintendent? Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to DSAC, trustee Schmidt.
I'd like to ask that the Board of Education receives a summary of the December 9th, 2015 DSAC minutes.
By trustee Schmidt, seconded by trustee DeGroot. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to item C, advisory committee meeting, trustee Schmidt.
I ask that the Board of Education receive a summary of the December 15th, 2015 advisory committee meeting. So moved.
Moved by trustee Schmidt, seconded by trustee Thorne. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to item D, BCSTA Provincial Council Issues Forum, trustee Hutchins.
Yes, it appears that the leadership is trying to enrich the provincial council forums, especially on a Saturday afternoon. And so there's a hefty discussion item proposed here, which we are asked to bring to the board. And as I'm confident you all spent your Christmas holidays reading all these audits, I would actually move that we refer this issues forum issue to the BED meeting on the 26th and ask if staff could forward either executive summaries or electronically each of the proposed audits we're supposed to review prior to the 26th so we can have a discussion on this.
Moved by trustee Hutchins, seconded by trustee Schmidt. Any comments? All those in favor? Motion carries. Moving to trustee appointments, and they are attached. The school liaisons remain basically the same, other than trustee Thorne and myself have made some changes. I would encourage people to decide next year that they move on, if you haven't this year. Organizations, list is there, and we will be asking our favorite PA, Gina, to be sending out that announcement to each of the organizations as to who has been appointed. And there is a new area of leadership connected, and that is primarily because some of the trustees had already taken on a leadership role, and others were thinking about, okay, what about me then? Where is my leadership capacity? And so each one of these areas, I ask that you work with the superintendent or delegate to move that agenda forward, whether it be facility planning or recognition, celebration, attendance and wellness, or any of the others. Remembering that you're there as a trustee, not as the board. So any thing that you would like to see happen as an action needs to come back to the board for approval prior to enacting whatever is being thought about. I think that this will keep us on track. It'll certainly add more on our administrative staff's shoulders, but hopefully it will be a positive and not a negative in that regard. So if you haven't already started off your leadership role in those areas, please contact Mr. Allen, our superintendent, and see what's your next meeting and how we're going to move forward. Any questions about that? Trustee DeGroote?
It's not actually about that. My question is around strategic planning. I don't see it anywhere here, and I'm wondering when we're going to start on that.
We have decided to address that at our next in-service session, so that's the place where we will decide how we're going to move forward. Okay, moving back to item F, Vista update, and again, we've had a little committee meeting, and then Gina has really taken it away. So at this point, we have the oceanfront suites at Cowichan Bay booked as the accommodation site, and we have a draft agenda which so far has not been approved by the Vista executive yet to go out, but this is what we've suggested. So on the Friday night, we would have registration with wine and cheese tasting, so a couple of our wineries come in, and hopefully at least one of the cheese places, and we would also serve appetizers in there. 6:30 to 7, First Nations welcome and our welcome and introductions, and 7 to 8:30, request by the Vista executive that there be a trustee pro-D session, which hasn't been determined yet, and then at 8:30 there would be the reception and Melrose Bar. On Saturday, thank you district staff, from early morning we'd have a buffet breakfast at VIU, and then from there we'd have a bus ready to go on the next tour. From 9 to 10:30, superintendent and whoever will be talking about competencies and how they relate to First Nations. Then from 12:45 from 10:45 to 12, a tour of the Cowichan Trade Center with VIU and us. Lunch at Seabolk, and then the afternoon is the Vista branch meeting. So that's the tentative plan. If anyone has any comments, you can certainly, Trustee Hutchins.
So where would the Vista branch meeting be held?
At Seabolk.
Okay. Do you think that's, yes, in the back there, you're thinking?
Probably downstairs in that open area.
Mm-hmm.
It's great space, because the
It's
building
great
will be
space.
empty. It's a great space.
Great space.
We anticipate we'd have about 60 people, I think, 60 plus maybe. So long as the room accommodates it. Okay.
The only concern I have is the one I said before, is the transportation from Couch on Bay to.
On their own.
On their own to town?
To the IU.
To the IU, and then we will bus them from
Yeah.
there.
If you wake up in the middle of the night and have an idea, please email me, not in the middle of the night, but later.
Well, it doesn't matter, she's not gonna check it in the middle of the night again.
That's true. Okay, but thank you, staff. It's moving on, and we'll get a registration pretty soon. Trustee Thorne.
I was hoping maybe I could have the opportunity to speak with Keisha Kwan. I know that VIU has a van, and it's usually free sometimes in the morning, and maybe if allowed, we could use that to transport some of the people from the hotel to VIU.
Okay, so I'll leave that with the superintendent to explore. Okay, moving back to the agenda, item 10, upcoming meetings and events. And the schedule is attached. Any comments, questions, or? We do have listed our upcoming meeting with the Cowichan First Nations Chief and Council on January 21st. Under advisory MBB meetings, Mr. Ellen?
What should be on here as we're now into March is February 29th evening with Yang Zhao.
Okay.
Pardon me?
The February 29th evening with Yang Zhao. We'll get it added to.
We'll add it in.
We'll add it
Okay,
in.
thank you.
Where will that be held? Where will that be?
We anticipate at Quamachin, multi-purpose rooms.
In the evening?
That's the DPAC and.
The DPAC is co-sponsoring.
Co-sponsor, yes.
The district. And that's it.
Okay. Yeah.
We're not sure how much public interest we're going to get. We will have Yang Zhao with all the staff in the afternoon. And don't want a half-filled. Rather have an overflowing room than a half-filled room.
Anything else to add or question about the upcoming meetings? Okay, moving to new business, non-question period. Anyone in the audience who has a question for us?
Was it that good?
All right, so I think there'll be a minor hooray here from our staff. Adjournment, motion to adjourn. Trustee Schmidt and Trustee DeGroot. All those in favor? The motion carries.
Okay.
And Happy New Year.
Very sweet story about Alexander
Into it.
School.